The single most time efficient yet highly effective investment you can make in your people is your one-on-one meeting with them. Hey leader, David Burkus here, organizational psychologist and author of 5 best-selling books on helping leaders and teams do their best work ever. Companies spend so much time finding people, finding great people, or at least attempting to find great people. They prioritize the search for talent. We want to know when we make that hiring decision that that person is going to come in and make an immediate impact. And yet, for all the time we spend trying to find talented people, we spend far less trying to help those talented people grow, or trying to help other people grow into talented people. And yet for leaders, one of the most time efficient and still incredibly effective investments you can make in your people is developing them through feedback, through the one-on-one meeting. So in this episode, we're gonna dive into what to cover in that one-to-one meeting. What do you say when it's time to develop your people, when it's time to focus on that investment? And this is important because one-on-one meetings and giving people that proper structured feedback have been known to boost morale, to boost productivity, to increase engagement, but only if they're done effectively. Poorly run one-on-one meetings have the opposite effect, decreasing morale, decreasing engagement, destroying productivity. And that makes it all the more important to get it right. And in this episode, we're gonna talk about how to get it right. Let's get started. When you look at all of the different research and all of the best practices around one-on-one meetings, there's really a simple yet effective threefold structure or formula for your one-on-one meetings. A good one-on-one meeting with a leader and a team member should focus on 3 areas: expectations, feedback, and growth and development. Expectations refers to the setting, tracking, monitoring, reviewing of clear objectives. This is about making sure we've got roles and responsibilities and timelines set. We know the key performance indicators, we know what's expected of us, and we know that we can perform that. In some cases, it even means making sure that we're giving people the resources they need to be able to meet those expectations. I recommend to a lot of organizations that do an annual performance review cycle, or even if they don't, to pick sort of an informal start of the year, to set down these expectations on sort of a one-page document. Here are the goals of the organization, the goals of the team, and my own personal goals, not only for my performance, but maybe even my development. To have those expectations clear so that when you're doing your one-on-ones, you start by reviewing those objectives. You start by that alignment between whatever's been happening between the last time we met and now, and those broad annual objectives, those key performance indicators. That way, this expectation set also becomes a chance to monitor progress and to mark progress and to celebrate progress. That'll not only help structure the proper feedback you'll need when we get to the next section, but it'll also leave people with that increase in morale, knowing they're making progress on those goals. Of course, that assumes they're making progress on those goals. If they're not, then this expectations conversation is going to be a lot longer and a lot more difficult. If they're not making them, then we're going to need to dive into why. Is it a systemic factor? Is it a lack of some resource? Or is it a personal factor? And if it's a personal factor, is it changeable? In other words, with the right training or the right skill set and development, can we get that person back on track or not? So this doesn't always mean that if you're not meeting expectations, you're in hot water necessarily. It means that we need to figure out why and what we can do, if we can do anything, to bring you back. Now, the last thing we want to talk about in expectations is what their expectations for you as the leader are. Right? When we did that one-page document, you gave some voice to that. You probably made some promises that. How are you doing? A good one-on-one session is not a monologue, you telling them how they're doing. It's a conversation. How are we doing? How can I support you? And so you're going to want to shift that at the very end of the expectations conversation to that. What expectations have you had of me, and how am I performing in that regard? Once you have both of those laid out, it's time to move into the second section around feedback. Now, feedback here refers to the ongoing and reciprocal giving and receiving coaching and feedback on performance. Once goals are clear and we know how meeting them is established, feedback is about how we're doing pursuing those goals. Where can we improve performance? What are the easy ways to improve performance? What are the more difficult things we need to focus on? What do we need to be doing specifically? What do we need to be changing in order to get closer to those goals? I think these feedback sections, this part of the conversation, works best if it's structured around 2 questions. What are the things this person is doing right now that are making them highly effective? So where are they already really performing well? And then what are the things they could change or do more of that would make them more effective? If you're familiar with that kind of start, stop, continue method of feedback, it's similar to that, except it's really just continue and start, because that's what makes the biggest impact. Now remember, this is a two-way street. So feedback isn't just you coaching them on where they're doing great and where they could improve. It's also them giving an opportunity to you to have you hear how they're doing. Do they feel like they're supporting you? This may be where we start to add stop to our start and continue, because you may give them space to talk about behaviors you're doing that are actually interfering. This is a hard lesson for a lot of leaders to learn, but oftentimes what's blocking people from doing their best work is something you're doing you didn't know you were doing, or that might even be well-meaning. But if you give them a little bit more autonomy by stopping doing it, you'll actually increase their motivation and their performance. Now, once you've got expectations and you've got feedback, we move to the final element of the conversation, which is growth and development. Where do we go from here? Not where do we go from here in terms of goals and what have you. Where do we, right, as two humans who work in this organization, where do we go from here? Specifically, where do you want to go from here? What skills, what new sets of knowledge, what abilities do you want to develop in your current role, and what are potential future roles for you? As a leader, you want to know the long-term career goals of each of your people, and you want to know if they've changed, because look, we live in a world where over the next 18 months, there will be jobs that you didn't even know existed and you might decide might be something you want to do. That's okay. What's not okay is you not knowing that as a leader. Unfortunately, if we just revolve around like the annual performance review process, a lot of people just keep saying that in 5 years they want to be a manager, or they want to be promoted, or what have you, when in reality they want to do a total reskilling and go somewhere completely different. And so when they resign, that leader is just blindsided. We want to avoid that. It's okay if your people tell you their long-term career goal is to be somewhere else, in some other industry, in some other company. That's okay, because they're still with you here now. And if you can have an honest conversation about their growth and development, and you can talk about where they want to go and what skills and abilities and knowledge they need to get there, and you can find ways to help them in their current role now, they will continue to perform and continue to excel in their current role now. I mean, the reality is everyone's going to grow out from under your leadership eventually. You are hopefully going to grow out of your leadership in that role into another one eventually. Nobody works with everyone all of the time. You're going to have to say goodbye to all of your people. But when you do, would you rather have them look back at you as a great leader who helped them, supported their development, who engaged them and got their best work out of someone? Or would you rather have them look at you as that leader they had to lie to in order to just keep their job? They had to lie to in order to get a little bit of a merit increase every single performance review session. I know which one I'd rather be. I think you do too. The other reason we end on growth and development is that it forces the conversation to be forward-looking. And nobody wants to have a one-on-one meeting that's literally just about, hey, we haven't talked in a month, and here's how you performed over the past month, and here's where you need to develop. That's not very motivating. But if we can tie all of that in, the expectations, the feedback, the improvements that need to be made, the changes that need to be made, if we can tie it all into something forward-looking, to here's how making these changes serves the organization, serves your own individual career goals, that leaves people much more optimistic and much more motivated to pursue those changes. So that's why not only do we have these three sections, but they're in that order: expectations, feedback, growth and development. And when you hit all three, and you hit all three in a conversation that's truly candid, when people can give you their candid feedback and they know that you're giving them candid feedback with the best of intentions, you'll find something amazing. You'll find that your people grow a whole lot faster than you ever anticipated. You'll find that these candid, hopefully often off-the-record conversations work a whole lot better than any formal annual review or performance improvement plan you can have. And you'll find that people really do start referring to you as, yeah, that type of leader you wanted to be, the type of leader under whose leadership people were able to do their best work ever. Oh, and one more thing. Obviously, the center of this threefold expectations, feedback, growth, and development formula is feedback. And so if you're wondering if this wasn't enough for you, if you're wanting a little bit more help on how to give great feedback, you're going to check out this video here. It covers the secret to giving great feedback.